Have you ever met someone who is talented, genuinely, undeniably talented, who has the hands of a craftsman, the mind of an inventor, the soul of a creator, yet somehow still struggles to produce anything of lasting value? Maybe that person is you. Maybe you've spent years developing your craft, sharpening your skills, filling notebooks with ideas, lining your shelves with tools and materials and half-started projects. Yet at the end of each day, you sit in the silence of what you didn't build, wondering, if I have everything I need, why does nothing ever get finished? What if I told you the problem has nothing to do with your talent? What if one man's painful discovery could show you the difference between having creative potential and actually unleashing it? Stay with me until the end. This story might change the way you begin every single morning. In a quiet town built on the edge of an old forest, there lived a 31-year-old craftsman named Dremund. Dremund was, by every visible measure, gifted. He had learned woodworking from his grandfather at the age of 9, and by his 20s, he could look at a raw piece of timber and see, immediately, instinctively, the object hidden inside it. His hands moved with the kind of unhurried precision that takes most people decades to develop. He understood wood grain the way a musician understands rhythm, not from study but from feeling. His workshop told the story of a man with extraordinary range. On the shelves, hand planes, chisels, draw knives, carving gouges, specialized rasps for curved surfaces. On the racks, reclaimed oak, river-worn walnut, figured maple, copper-threaded teak. On his workbench, sketches, measurements, and enough raw material to build a small house. To anyone who walked in, the workshop looked like the headquarters of someone doing serious, important work. But Dremund had a problem that none of those tools could fix. He was not producing anything. Not really. Not in the way that mattered. His cousin Marcus, a furniture restorer 2 towns over, had a simpler workshop, fewer tools, cheaper wood, a single fluorescent light, and had somehow delivered 14 custom commissions that year. Dremund, with his superior space and superior materials, had completed 3. 2 of them were gifts. One was a repair job. At the regional craftsman's market in October, Dremund had set up a booth next to an older woman named Ife, who made hand-thrown ceramics in a converted garden shed. Her work was unhurried, consistent, deeply intentional. She had sold 30 pieces before noon. Dremund had stood at his own table for 4 hours, straightening the same display 3 times, rearranging the sign twice, and wondering whether he should have brought different samples. He went home with everything he'd arrived with. He told himself it was the display, it was the lighting, it was the location of the booth, it was the crowd. It was not those things, but Dremund was not ready to look at what it actually was. The crisis came in February. A client, the owner of a boutique hotel 2 hours from town, had commissioned a statement piece, a large live-edge dining table in black walnut, to be the centerpiece of their new restaurant. It was the largest, most prestigious commission Dremund had ever received. The deposit had been paid. The wood had been sourced. The deadline was 12 weeks away. He started on a Monday with full intention. By Wednesday, he had not made a single cut, not because he lacked the skill. He had built tables more complex than this one. But on Monday, he had spent 3 hours debating which joinery method to use, mortise and tenon or hand-cut dovetail, even though either would have been excellent. On Tuesday, he had reorganized his tool wall, convinced that the inefficiency of searching for tools was the thing slowing him down. On Wednesday morning, he had scrolled through 17 reference photos of live-edge tables online, updating his mental picture of what the best version might look like. By the time he physically stood at his workbench with a pencil in his hand, it was Thursday afternoon. He felt inexplicably tired, dull, hollowed out. He made 2 marking lines on the wood, stepped back, second-guessed the measurements, and walked away. Week 2 looked the same. Week 3, week 4. At week 6, the hotel owner called. "I just want a progress update, Dremund, nothing formal, just want to know we're on track." There was nothing to report. He said the words anyway, "It's coming along well," and immediately felt the weight of them settle on his chest like wet concrete. He hung up the phone and sat in the dim amber light of the workshop, surrounded by the finest tools and materials he had ever owned, and realized he was paralyzed. Not because the job was too hard, because he had used all of his energy deciding, debating, and doubting before the real work had ever begun. He looked at his hands, resting still in his lap, and felt something cold move through him. If I can't build this, he thought, what am I actually doing here? That night Dremu did something he had never done before. He pulled out a notebook not to sketch a new design but to account for his own day. He went back through the previous 6 weeks hour by hour as honestly as he could stand. And the numbers that emerged were staggering. Before he ever touched a tool, he had been making decisions, dozens of them, every single morning. Which coffee to make, whether to check messages before or after breakfast, what to listen to while warming up the workshop, which project sketch to review first, whether the wood needed another week of acclimation, whether the bench height was optimal, whether the lighting on the left side was affecting his ability to read the grain. He had been treating these choices as free, as if deciding cost nothing. But every one of them had drawn from the same account. He sat with the notebook open and watched, in real time, as a notification from a craft forum pinged his phone. And he physically felt it, a small but real depletion in his chest as his brain automatically began to assess. Do I open it? Do I ignore it? Should I respond? Is it relevant? A tiny choice, costing real energy. He had been robbed every single morning by a thief so quiet he had never once heard it enter the room. The workshop wasn't the problem. The tools weren't the problem. The materials weren't the problem. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't undisciplined. He wasn't unmotivated. He was arriving at his workbench every day already exhausted, because the journey from his bed to his bench had been paved with 100 invisible decisions, each one extracting a toll he had never thought to measure. He closed the notebook. He had been blaming everything except the truth. 2 days later, Dremu drove to visit his grandfather. The old man was in his 80s now, still sharp, still tinkering, a simple workshop behind his house, a single set of carving tools on a single shelf, a kettle always on. When Dremu arrived, he found him at his bench, focused and unhurried, working on a small wooden bowl with a finish gouge. They sat with tea afterward, and Dremu told him everything. The commission, the paralysis, the notebook, the math of the invisible toll. His grandfather listened without interrupting. When Dremu finished, the old man reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out 2 objects, a worn penknife and a mechanical pencil. He set them side by side on the table. When I was young, he said, my workshop looked like yours, full, impressive. Every tool for every possibility. He tapped the penknife. Now I keep this in my pocket. It does almost everything I need in the first hour of work. The rest of the tools are there for when the work calls for them, not for when I'm deciding what to start with. He picked up the pencil. And every night before I sleep, I write down the 3 things I will do first when I wake up. Not a list of options. 3 decisions already made. He looked at Dremu steadily. You are not short on talent. You are short on architecture. Your talent is a fire. But every morning before you let it burn, you are using it to light 1,000 small candles that don't matter. By the time you reach the hearth, there's nothing left to ignite. Dremu sat very still. A full day of great work, his grandfather said, does not begin with a full schedule. It begins with an empty decision list. The changes Dremu made were not dramatic. They were architectural. He started with the physical space. He cleared his workbench completely, every object, every option, and returned only what was needed for the walnut table. 1 set of hand planes, 2 marking gauges, the chisels in the sizes the joints would require. A single reference sketch, pinned at eye level, already decided. The shelves of supplementary tools remained, but they were no longer in his field of vision. They were resources, not decisions. The workshop shrank, and in shrinking it breathed. He moved to his mornings. Every evening before leaving the workshop, he made 5 decisions for the next day: what he would eat for breakfast, what he would wear, what he would listen to during warm-up. which specific task he would begin with the moment he walked through the door, and one backup task if the first one was blocked. No choosing in the morning, only doing. He deleted 3 applications from his phone, not because they were bad but because they were options, sources of micro-decisions that began the moment he woke up. He set a rule: no screens for the first 90 minutes of his day, not as a wellness practice, as an engineering decision. The first 90 minutes were protected, sacred. They belonged to the work. The first week felt strange. The absence of choice felt like something missing, like a phantom limb. He would reach for his phone out of habit and find it out of reach. He would glance at the shelves of tools and feel a flicker of the old maybe something better anxiety. Then he would look at his workbench, clean, clear, committed, and pick up the plane that was already there. And he would begin. In the second week, something shifted. He noticed that by mid-morning, he was deeper into the work than he had been by mid-afternoon in the weeks before. His hands were moving with the old fluency, the unhurried precision that had always been there but had been arriving late, starved of fuel by the time it reached the bench. On a Tuesday in the third week, he worked for 4 hours without once glancing at his phone, checking the time, second-guessing a measurement, or stopping to wonder if he had chosen the right approach. He simply worked. When he finally stepped back to look at the table's leg assembly, the joinery clean, the proportions correct, the first surfaces already showing the grain's depth, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. Not relief. Pride. The quiet, settled kind that comes from making something real. The commission was delivered on time. Not early, exactly on time, but whole and worthy and true to the vision. When the hotel owner sent a photo of the table installed in the restaurant lit from above, surrounded by chairs, the live edge catching the light, she included a single line. "This is exactly what I hoped for, and better than I imagined." Draymood printed the photo and pinned it to the wall where the reference sketch had been. But something else happened that he hadn't expected. The market in April, the same regional craftsman's market where he had gone home with everything he'd brought, was different. Not because he had more inventory. He had less, actually. 3 pieces. All of them finished completely. All of them made with the same focused, unhurried presence he had been building for 2 months. Ife was there again with her ceramics. This time he sold all 3 pieces before noon. A couple buying the smaller of the pieces, a side table in figured cherry, asked if he had a waiting list for commissions. He said he would put them on one. He hadn't had a waiting list before. He did now. On the drive home, he called Marcus. "You were always the better craftsman," Marcus said. "I never understood what was getting in the way." Draymood thought about that for a long time. Then he said, I was getting in the way." That evening, Draymood walked out to the edge of the forest behind his property, a place he used to walk with his grandfather when he was a boy. He stood in the quiet beneath the pines and noticed something he had forgotten. How still it was. Not empty. Still. The kind of stillness that is full of something, presence, attention, the particular quality of a mind that is not deciding anything, because everything has already been decided. This was what his best hours in the workshop had felt like lately. He thought about the years of paralysis, all those mornings spent choosing between chisels when the real choice he had been avoiding was far simpler: begin. He thought about the notebook, the math, the invisible toll. He thought about his grandfather's penknife and pencil on the table. The difference between a full workshop and a productive one was not the quality of the tools. It was the clarity of the commitment. He had spent years building a magnificent engine, then burning the fuel before he ever started it. Now he understood, creative energy is not a personality trait. It is a resource, and resources can be managed. He turned and walked back toward the light of the workshop. The table inside was cleared and ready. He already knew exactly what he was building next. My friend, Draymood's story is not just about woodworking or workshops or missed commissions. It is about something every creative person faces. We live in a world that celebrates options. We are told that more choices mean more freedom. From the moment we wake up, we are offered which app, which feed, which response, which version, which possibility. We are told that keeping our options open is wisdom. But here is what nobody tells you. Every choice you make costs something, even the small ones. And if you spend your best morning energy on the small ones, what to eat, what to wear, what to check, what to scroll through, you will arrive at your real work already depleted. You will sit down to create and wonder why nothing comes. You are not blocked. You are not burned out. You are not lacking inspiration. You are a craftsman who has been spending his gold coins on parking meters. The most productive creators in history were not people with more time than everyone else. They were people who protected their energy before they protected their schedule. They automated the trivial so they could bring their full force to the meaningful. Decision fatigue is not a buzzword. It is a daily theft. And the thief is not laziness or distraction. The thief is unmanaged choice. So here is your challenge, the same lesson Dreymood had to learn through a nearly failed commission. First, tonight before you sleep, make 5 decisions for tomorrow. Your breakfast, your first task, your starting time. 2 things you will not check until after your first hour of real work. Write them down. Tomorrow morning, don't decide, just follow. Second, look at your workspace, physical or digital, and find the 10 objects, tabs, apps, or options that create daily micro-decisions you have already made 100 times. Remove them from your field of vision, not from your life, from your starting line. Third, this week, give yourself one 90-minute window that belongs only to your real work. No inputs, no options, no beginning with a decision. Begin with a tool already in your hand. You will be amazed at what arrives when the decision has already been made. You do not need more talent. You do not need more time. You need to stop spending your creative gold on the things that cost a penny. Protect the first hour. Automate the trivial. And when you sit down to build. If this story helped you see something you hadn't seen before, share it with someone who is talented and stuck. Sometimes the most gifted people just need someone to show them where the leak is. And if it resonated, leave a like and tell me in the comments. What is the one small daily decision you could remove tomorrow to protect your creative energy? I'd love to hear it. Subscribe for more stories that help you work not just harder, but smarter. Remember, talent builds the fire. Architecture keeps it burning. Protect your fuel and let the work be what it was always meant to be. Stay focused, stay deliberate, and never mistake busyness for creation.